It was July 1 at 11 o'clock. I walked in and he said, "Hey, I got your biopsy back and it's not good. You have cancer." As a little kid, I worked in a drugstore when people came in and said they've got cancer, my spouse has cancer. I'd hear the pharmacist talk, "Well, that's too bad, they'll be dead in a month." And I'd go home and read the paper, and sure enough, 30 days later, they'd be dead. So yeah, I knew I had 30 days to live. And that was the start of the journey.
And all the controllers to the back of the control room as we gear up for possible cherry back, please.
Whatever what you want. Let's get moving.
Losi to Ski Patrol, we just had a guest hit quad chairlift.
Say your transmission for Ski Patrol, over.
Ski Patrol is needed at Tower 3 on quad chair. We just had a guest hit the tower.
Hey, you go.
I'll go over there,
Take
Charlie.
Don with you. Take Don with you. Let us now shift our resources over to we have an accident on the quad. Someone has hit the tower.
Someone just hit the tower.
I know, we're working on it.
Yeah.
And the other patrolers out of the quad, please head down to Tower 3.
Yeah, we got the chair run. We'll get everybody off, but then this chair will be shut down the rest of the night.
10-4. All right, the Devil's now running.
Got the person's up, says they're fine, they're just a little shaken up. We're coaxing them to maybe come in and visit you guys.
Okay, very good, thank you. So here's where they're at, everybody. The Devil is running, they're slowly unloading. Our accident on the quad is now, we have a walking patient, so that's looking okay. So thank you all very much for attending Lesbian Ski Patrol for the evening. Awesome, everybody's ready. We rock. That's why we do this. That's why we practice.
The Ski Patrol, from what Michael Koistra says, it's 150 of your friends that you just haven't met yet. And they're people like Michael Walenta that once you meet them, you figure out that you're one of them.
I started skiing when I was 3 years old. My dad always skied his whole life, so he taught us how to ski. He was always very encouraging, and even when we fell, he would always be right there to make sure that we got back up and to keep going. And we'd go down the Black Diamonds with him when we were little, and we were terrified, but he would ski down halfway, and we would go halfway to ski to him, and then he'd go a little bit further down the hill, and we'd ski to him, and then sure enough, we were able to ski Black Diamonds at a young age. Because my brother and I, we always liked to go fast, so he would always try and do what he could to teach us more technique.
I would definitely say that I've always strived to be like my dad with the knowledge and the expertise. We're just always ready and willing to help out with anything.
Michael and I met on the church volleyball team in Austin, Texas. When I joined that group, I didn't have a friend say, "Come join." I just joined, and he did the same. He was interested in lots of activities and sports. He was on a sailing team, and he told me all about skiing. He skied probably since he was 2 years old because he grew up in Petoskey, Michigan. And he was business-minded and real goal-oriented. That interested me. I knew he was going somewhere.
I believe the first time I met Michael was my final, my OEC final, which is our medical training. Back then it was probably 9 months worth of work, and Michael was one of the instructors there that would test us. And it's kind of interesting, he failed me on backboard. Yeah, that was my first introduction to Michael, and I was so mad at him. I didn't know him that well. And here you work so hard and you do everything you can. Later on, I learned a little bit more about Michael, and I was quite blown away by his credentials. He is a force to be reckoned with on the force here. He's the go-to guy for any kind of a low-angle rescue. He's done rock climbing, avalanche. I mean, he's trained in almost every facet that Ski Patrol offers if you look up his credentials. And I thought, you know, I was failed by him, but I was failed by a great person. And after that, I realized that I could learn so much from this guy. He's not somebody to dislike. He's somebody that you want a friend and you want to get to know, and you want to learn everything you can from him.
There was one time that my dad and I went to Europe, just us. This was spring break, my junior year in college. We just had 2 plane tickets, had no reservations. We just flew over. We just hopped on a train and went into Austria. We found this village right at the base of a mountain, just out of a storybook. And there was one room left in this small little inn. So we got that, and then just right out of the back window of our room, it's just a mountain straight up. It was a 5-minute walk from our hotel room to the base of the mountain to go skiing. And that was phenomenal. And then afterwards, when we went home, we just got on a train and went to Zurich and then hopped on a plane and came home. We just totally just found our way. And that's one of the things he always taught me was go adventuring and see what he can find.
I don't know. Do you think we had
Sense of
similar reasons?
adventure.
Oh, yeah.
I think anybody who's on ski patrol has a sense of adventure. They like to have fun. They like to get active, busy.
Yeah, our skiing and sailing family is pretty much combined. A lot of the guys that I ski with on Thursdays are also on sailing on Wednesdays. Michael and I have sailed in some really crazy weather well before Michael had cancer. We were racing with some people that we barely knew but had very little experience. The skipper, myself, and Michael had been across the lake numerous times. There were 6 people on the boat that had never been across the lake. So we knew we had our hands full. So we're 20 miles east of Milwaukee, and we're looking back to the horizon, and we're seeing these bright flashes of light. Well, you can tell the difference between green and blue fireworks versus when the entire sky lights up with lightning and thunder. And we got the Coast Guard reports. And there was tornadoes hitting down in Milwaukee at different spots. And we knew it was going to hit us. So we had to get the boat ready. And all of a sudden the wind got very, very quiet. There really is a calm before the storm at sea. And I said, guys, we got to get the sails down now. And the crew pretty nervous about it, didn't know what was going on. When everything's going bad on the boat, he tended to be a little bit more calm about things. So, okay, we can get through this. This is what we need to do. And just said, we'll make sure the boat stays upright and we'll go from there.
How are you?
Good. How you been?
Good.
Good. That's good. Any problems with you?
I just got a little bit of pain in the back. I don't know if it's any big deal or not. It's right there.
So Michael's present with oral cavity squamous cell carcinoma, which is basically head and neck cancer that start in the mucosa of the oral cavity. He was locally advanced, so meaning it's only in the head and neck area, so that's why it's curable. Has not spread outside the head and neck area.
The day we found out, I was out with my daughter Kristen. She was in high school and she was living on a trip for Europe. This was our day to go do our little errands, get all the things she needed. So I planned the whole day to spend with her. And about 10 in the morning, Michael called me and said, the dentist wants to see me. And I just went, okay, that's kind of weird. It was a Friday, it was July 1st. And the more I thought about it, it didn't sound right. And he called me a couple of times during that saying, when are you coming home? And it's not like Michael. He's so independent. He doesn't, worry about when are you coming home? I need you at home. As the day went on, I knew something went wrong. We came home. And then right away he said, Kristen, don't you have something to do, like some friends to go visit? Well, that was not like him, and I knew he needed to talk, and so we got Kristen sent off to the movies with some friends.
Well, I remember the day exactly. I remember I was at the movies with my friend, and we were going to go to the mall after we saw the movie, and then I remember my mom texted me during the movie and told me that I had to come home right after the movie was over, but I didn't have to leave the movie early. That was fine to stay till the end. And so I was really confused because they had already told me that we weren't doing anything that afternoon, so it was fine to hang out with my friends. And then I remember calling my mom and trying to ask her, trying to figure out what was going on as to why I had to come home. She wouldn't tell me anything, but she just told me that I needed to come home right away. And so I did. And then I remember I walked in and they sat me down on the couch. And I sat in between both my mom and my dad. And then my dad told me that he had cancer. Sorry. And I remember that night my dad, he left to drive up to Mackinac Island because my brother was working on the island at the time. So my mom and I were just left at home together and didn't really know what to do. We kind of just sat there for a while together, just thinking of all the good times that we've had. And
Kevin was working up on up on Mackinac Island. Got in the car, drove up. Got in the car, drove up that night, found a hotel, got the first boat over. Wanted to surprise, didn't want to tell them I'm coming, because then why, what's going on? And then called them and said, hey, surprise, I'm here for breakfast. I told him.
I just thought he just wanted to surprise me and show up unannounced, which is very much like him. So I wasn't really expecting anything out of the blue, but also a little bit just the way he is. There's an old apple tree right outside the post office, so we were sitting under that on the bench, and he just told me. And I remember we were both crying on each other's shoulders. I don't really remember a whole lot after that. It was kind of a blur. I was just so stunned.
It was real hard for him when I left.
It was really hard to see him struggle through daily activities that most people take those for granted, and to see your dad, someone who you looked up to and thought, that he's indestructible, to see him go through that was really hard. I would just try and be there for him, though, and just talk to him and know that I was, gonna be there, and that I still looked up to him, and to know that he was beating an awful disease and, succeeding was amazing.
Michael's journey, it was a difficult journey. Head and neck cancer patients really go through a very difficult treatment with receiving chemotherapy and radiation therapy. There's a lot of side effects that occur during the treatment. You get fatigue, you get mouth sores, you get a sore throat, and there's a fair amount of pain involved, and these effects are cumulative. So in the beginning they're not so bad, but by the end of the treatment, patients are pretty tired from the treatment.
It's probably the understatement of the year. For me, I lost a lot of weight, but I was losing weight rapidly before because I couldn't eat, because those tumors in your jaw. So I lost 80 pounds through the process. I was pretty big at the time. So everybody who said cancer kind of jokes about, the weight loss, that was the good part, but it's a rough way to do it. I can't eat a hard roll. I can't get my mouth open. I can't eat an apple. I can't eat corn on the cob. I can't take that jaw pressure. I only have half a jaw. I had a rail that went from here to here, a titanium rail, and I broke it.
It was all an unknown. I wondered if he'd ever be able to eat again or have energy again, do the things that he loved doing.
And they wanted to take one of my leg bones. You have two bones in your lower leg, and they wanted to take one out to rebuild that. But I didn't know how active I could be, so I refused. Went to 5 different doctors to get a second opinion, and a guy in Houston said, well, I can take part of your rib and rebuild it. And while I was down there for a pre-surgical consult, I'll never forget, and I'll quote, "You're so damn high functional, we'll just see how it works out. I'm not going to do it."
And of course you wonder the worst too. Is he really going to survive this? Just because he's had the surgery, you really wonder if he's going to make it and, see those milestones in your life with the kids and the graduations and the colleges and things like that. You just wonder.
Instead of taking my leg bone, they took the whole back of my left arm and they put it here. And I have 300 sutures putting my arm back together. So to this day, I still am in physical therapy.
He was kind of down for the count. He was beat up by the treatment. He had lost a fair amount of weight. He didn't have the strength that he used to have. And it got into the race season, which again we start working on the boat in April. And as it got into May, it's like, Michael, we need you on the boat. When are you going to come out? Well, I don't know. I'm really tired and weak, and I don't have the strength. The strength of a kitten right now. So that's okay. I'm going to keep on you on this. And I said, I'm going to call you every week. And I said, if you get tired of it, you let me know, and I'll stop. But he says, no, keep calling. And called all the way through the summer.
I was really surprised how how they were always constantly checking up on me. Would you come back out? Need you on the boat. Come back out. And every week I'd come up with some veiled excuse, and you know, they saw through it. And then just unrelenting over and over and over. The same with my friends. Like I told you on Ski Patrol, you know, they going back for that training. I'm confident it was all set up. The people they put me with, the way I went to the head of the line at every place I went, you know, it just doesn't happen. And then later you go, oh yeah.
I'm glad you remembered that.
I do.
So yeah, but that's what Ski Patrol's about. We take care of each other.
Meant a lot.
Thanks.
It was probably about mid-August that he finally either was tired of my badgering or he started to feel well enough that he wanted to come back out and race. Then he started coming back to the boat and had the same old sailing gear on that he always did. Hung on him. It was much too large. But he came down with the same gear that he used to, his sailing bag, and he had his tactical compass around his neck. He was ready to go.
So embarrassed that I had no strength left. I mean, I was just nothing for what I was in the past. Where I used to take a winch one hand and grind it in, not even think about it. Now, all I could do was sit there, scared to death I didn't fall over because I didn't think I'd swim.
It was just kind of an ideal night to be racing. And there was probably 30 to 40 boats. We're watching the fleet ahead of us and seeing what they're doing with wind shifts. Starting to see, do we want to be on the outside of the course, we want to be on the inside, because everything is not equal with the wind. Might be stronger puffs over here, weaker puffs over here, vice versa. And so that's where Michael really shined on that, looking for these different puffs. I think we gained on a boat or two, probably passed a couple. Did our last downhill mark, finished the race, some high fives around. Glad to have Michael back in the boat, and I think we either took a second or third in our division for the evening, which was really good. And then at that point, it's relaxation time. We take some of the sails down, look at the sunset, enjoy just the company and the weather because it was such a beautiful evening.
Means a lot. I mean, people genuinely care.
Sailing kind of showed me that he used to do a lot more on the boat, but now after cancer, they would always ask a lot less of him physically than anyone else on the boat, but he was still irreplaceable because of his sailing knowledge. And that was one of the things that would kind of be the new normal for him, because he's always one of the ones to jump right in and help out as whenever anything needs doing. And well, now they would definitely say, no, you sit down, we've got this. You know, you Michael, you don't have to help. You know, let the young guys do it. He would still try and jump in right away like he used to, because that's just my dad.
During Michael's surgery and recovery, Ken Colby, the assistant general manager, stepped into the acting role, and Ken and I and the other senior staff here tried to carry on and do the things that we thought Michael would do and want done during his departure.
After Michael's surgery and after the chemo and radiation, he was released to, doctors were released to go back to work when he wanted. They said, take it easy, start, do what you can. So he told me on Monday, I'm going back to work. I said, okay, you can go for 2 hours. 2 hours, he said. What am I going to do in 2 hours? I don't know. You're going to walk up there and you sit at your desk and say hello and you open your computer, close your computer, and come home. You have to be home in 2 hours. He thought I was joking, but I wasn't.
My job was to try to get him to take it easy and, heal, get his strength back, and get better. But he, I've told him he pushed it too much, and sometimes he would get, a little run down. So I was working conspiratorially with Nancy, his wife, to try to get him to ease back in and get his strength back. That was the toughest part of it for me.
He came home and he was home before lunch. He was exhausted. I think he slept for the next 8 hours. Woke up for dinner and probably went back to bed. He said, I'm going back tomorrow. I said, all right. How long are you going to stay? He goes, I'll be home by noon.
Well, I just try to be there for my mom, and some days my mom would be sad, and I would always just try and, you know, be the best daughter there could be, I guess. You know, if the kitchen was dirty that day and I noticed that she was more sad than usual, you know, I'd try and do what I could to keep up the house and just do little things so that she wouldn't have to have that burden on her.
I knew that my life as a mother and caregiver, mother to the kids, I might be the only parent, or being the caregiver to Michael. You know, in the past, we've been married almost 28 years now, I have hardly ever had to take care of him for being sick with the flu or other episodes. He did have a heart stent 2 years before the cancer, and even then his recovery was in 3 days, 4 days, he was back to work. So it was so minor, it was just a little bump in the road. When we found out it was cancer, I didn't know what my role would be as caregiver, but I knew it would be drastically different than anything I'd ever done before.
But no, I never really had any, you know, I was scared definitely that something could go wrong, and I know of the possibilities of what cancer can do, but you know, at the back of my mind, I think I wasn't truly scared that I would lose him. I've always had my dad. He's not gonna leave. But I did see him. I did see what cancer did to him. Just how, you know, how weak he got, how much pain it was causing him, and that affected me so much more than the fear of him being gone, just because I could actually see him in pain right in front of me.
Michael's an extremely independent person, which is how he's gotten to where he is in business. He plans his own calendar for work. He plans it for his activities. So for Michael to come down with cancer and all of a sudden have to be this sickly person or dependent on me to take care of him, it was a total change in his behavior. And yet he fought it. You could tell he still wanted to be independent through this whole thing. He wanted to be in control. Well, when you have cancer, you're out of control. You show up and the doctors tell you to, and you do what the doctors say, and he knew that.
When you meet him, if you did not know him before, you'll see the spot on his jaw where the cancer work was done and where he's had a skin graft. Otherwise, I don't see anything that's different. He is just as hardworking and just as detailed and careful and thoughtful as he has always been.
Depression is very common in cancer patients.
It gets pretty dark going through cancer for anybody, and you got to face some really dark times, and there's a point you've really got to decide which way you're going to go. And I don't think anybody blames you to go either way at a certain point, but because of my family, I chose to go the other way. Here I am today.
There were times that we would sit in the doctor's office and I know tears would come in his eyes, and me too. But he did it privately. He really did. But I would know that he'd have a bad moment or a bad day. And, you know, we would just sit together and hold hands. We'd sit together, we watched TV together. I was never the person to sit around this house and watch TV. And we sat together and watched a lot of shows, and we'd hold hands while we'd sit. We never had done that before. We held hands at night. We'd fall asleep in bed holding hands together. I think it was just that assurance that you knew the person you loved was right beside you.
Sometimes he always just tries and makes up rhymes. Whenever we say something, he'll just try and make it rhyme and make a song out of it. And It never works, but it's always funny. Sometimes he'll just go off singing and dancing, and then sometimes it's hard to keep the conversation, you know, serious again, because after that, the conversation is gone.
You know, I encourage the kids to keep talking to their dad and just call them. I know Kevin called from college a bunch. That helped Michael just to hear their voices. I don't know if he even remembered what they said or what was going on, but I don't know. You feel more special with your spouse. I mean, that sickness and in health line in the church, it's true.
My dad's made me laugh a lot throughout the years. He's always got a couple good jokes. I mean, he normally repeats them, but they're always good. One of his favorites, because we would always travel a lot, and you know, my mom's always the last one out of the house. She forgot to pack this thing, and then finally we pull out of the driveway, and my dad would just go, and we're off like a herd of turtles.